Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 261. SEMA builder Terry Rose. Twisted, coming at you. Here we go.
I had some sleepless nights over it, over a good problem, right? I mean, it's like if I decided no, I still got this incredible truck. If I decided yes, I've got this financial kind of windfall that kind of fell in my laps. So it was kind of a win-win, but man, it was such a difficult decision because, like I said, I just got done putting 2 years of what I love doing, and now we've got a finished product out there, and the reception is incredible.
Damn, son. Seeing is believing, and our title sponsor, United Pacific, makes seeing a whole lot easier. The crispness of the United Pacific LED headlights, taillights, marker lights, and more makes seeing and showing your truck that much better. It's time to upgrade your old dim halogens for new LED headlights, taillights, and more. They offer the brightest and latest LED technology. Headlights are available up to 1600 lumens, easy to install, and it fits right in the OEM housing. How about upgrading to sequential taillights? They're DOT approved and ready to ship today. And for you 73 to 80 GMC and Chevy square body guys, they've got the new front parking lights, LED with stainless steel bezel. Think UP Car Parts. That's upcarparts.com.
Let me tell you what Melba's Toast is packing right here, all right? We've got 411 Posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some fucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. Got the ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth clapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
What's up? What's up, C10 Nation? How about some T-Rose Twisted? Hell yeah. One of the baddest, raddest two-wheel drive Blazer Jimmies out there, and we got them. So, it's funny. Of course, I love hanging with Terry, talking to Terry, but it took a little twist, if you will, because there's some information that you've probably heard. I've already posted it, that it's sold. And so I think, shifted the focus of the interview a little bit to what it takes to be a SEMA builder, or that high level caliber of a builder. So from the perspective of the story of Twisted and Terry and the journey, you're going to get a lot of information about how and what and why and the process of being a SEMA builder. So I don't know that I went into that much depth with another guest. I know I've talked to Sam about some different things, but I think when it comes to really getting in the weeds and then enjoying the journey of Twisted, we were able to find that balance. I hope you guys feel the same way, because the journey is the journey. We know the journey within reason, but you don't know all the backstories and the struggles and the sleepless nights and the amount of work and stress and, again, even the monetary perspective. So I appreciate Terry taking the time to sit down with us and share the story, share the Twisted tornado journey it has been. I think you enjoyed it. I know I did, and I hope you guys get something from it. So enjoy this episode with T-Rose Twisted. Okay, a couple shows coming up this weekend. You've got Battle in Bama in Mobile, Alabama. Love that show. You got Craig Rowley. You got Tacos on the Ship Friday night, all day Saturday, and then Sundays seemed to be pretty chill when I was there. So that's May 5th, 6th, and 7th, Mobile, Alabama. And then C10 Nationals, May 12th and 13th, Texas Motor Speedway. I went to the first one. I haven't been back yet. We had a blast when I went 5-6 years ago. We did get to run on the track. I'm not sure if they still do that or not. But C10 Nationals, Texas Motor Speedway, right there in the center of the racetrack. So that's pretty cool, that atmosphere. C10 Nationals, Texas style. And then May 26th and 27th, if you're in the area of Lincoln, Nebraska, you've got the Wheel Hub guys. What they're doing is they're doing a show, Wheel Hub Magazine Live. So obviously Wheel Hub, Truck Hub, and their magazines. What they're going to do is if you've been featured or if a builder or a vehicle's been featured in that magazine, they're inviting them to the Speedway Museum of American Speed, and they're having kind of an open house show on May 26th through the 27th, and that's in Lincoln, Nebraska. So if you've been a subscriber of Wheel Hub, Truck Hub, knowing the caliber of the vehicles that are in those magazines, you're going to get to see some of those if you're in that area. Lincoln, Nebraska, May 26th and 27th. If you got any questions, it's pretty easy. You can go on to Wheel Hub. You can go on to museumofamericanspeed.com. museumofamericanspeed.com. Either way, that'll get you there, but that's May 26th and 27th. So wrapping up the month of May. And yeah, good stuff, right? A lot of stuff going on, a lot of happenings. So for me, my oldest daughter, so my second, is going to graduate about that same time, May 25th, and then we've got graduation and some parties and some different things, and then getting ready to send her out the door, off to college. So a lot going on around here as well. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate the support. Questions, comments, concerns, Ronnie at Truck Talk Media. Ronnie at Truck Talk Media. It's that easy. If you've got a show that you want us to talk about, meaning a truck show, and we need to announce it, let us know. Try not to get too far ahead. Obviously, we know there's stuff going on in June, July, August. We'll kind of do it as it comes close, but maybe I'll have a little bit more time and I'll do a layout of 10 shows as they come up. But it seems like with social media, we're lucky we have a pretty good grasp of it. But again, it's a good thing because we got a lot of options. Speaking of options, I know you got a lot of options. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for making C10 Talk part of your listening experience. We do appreciate it. All right, guys. Late. What is up? What is up, C10 Nation? Twisted Terry Rose. Oh, Terry, my brother, man. So good to have you on here. It's been a whirlwind for you. So I think we're, if you think about it for the audience, Terry Rose, he's got 68 Domino, and then the GMC comes along and we get to watch it. And then you get to go to SEMA, and then you get to go to Barrett-Jackson, Grand National Roadster Show. And now you kind of are rounding home and at least getting it to settle down a little bit. What a crazy 6 months, I guess even longer when you factor in the build. So probably, longer. So welcome to the pod. Thanks for sitting down with us. Love, I hate to just always say every guest we have is just, they're great people, but we're blessed. And Terry is no different. Terry, his wife, Sarah, and their family, we're blessed to have people like you in our community. So thanks for taking time to sit down with us.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for reaching out. Man, it's hard to believe. It seems like it was just last week that you and I were out at SEMA doing everything. And, it's been like 4 or 5 months now. So it's been an incredibly wild, just super fast paced, super fun, super excited. Like you said, we've been all over with Twisted. I think we actually logged right at 11,000 miles hauling Twisted around between Vegas to, we also did the grand finale down in Louisiana, that show down there. Craig Rowley, the same, puts on Battle in Bama. So he had that one. We hit Lone Star Throwdown as well, another huge show down in Texas. I had to go down there and support, Chris Pate and the Mobile Toys guys. They just cleaned house down there with all the vehicles that they were associated with. And so we've just been, we've been taking every opportunity we can, get the truck out in front of people, let people see, what my build team, I had Chris England from Chris England Concepts. He was the primary builder, relatively unknown out in the scene, but he is so talented, man. You saw the paint, you saw the body work and everything in person. I mean, it's just clean. I mean, he just really kills it. So it was one of the big things for me was really to get the truck out there, not only just to see Twisted, but to really people to understand Chris England and try to, I was hoping to fill up his next 5 years of builds, man, just load him up. And he's had a whole lot of calls from it. He's actually got a few different builds from it. And I couldn't be more excited for him. I mean, he's such a great dude. And like you were saying, we're surrounded by so many great people in this industry. And that's exactly who he is. I mean, he's a just one of the nicest guys, one of the most humble guys. He's got 2 young boys, and great wife, and I want nothing but success for him. So I'm excited to see him too. So
yeah, when we were at SEMA, I got to meet him and his wife, and humble man who you could tell he's kind of remind me like big old Bo and Luke Duke, just a big dude.
He's a big dude, yeah.
And I think he was, a little taken back with everything going on. And however you guys paired up, it's cool that you are, a hype man for him, because people like that need that, they need that break. And he's just in the shop grinding and taking care of business. So it's cool that you not only found him, but you're also willing to showcase him, because some guys, they don't, and they just say, well, I paid this guy to do the work. They did the work. I'm the general contractor, I'm the builder, you know what I mean? And
right.
You don't have to do that, and he probably knows that as well. So it's cool that it's working out.
Yeah, it's been awesome, because and it was a big learning experience for me too on this one. So when we had Domino built, so we built that back in, we debuted in 15 at SEMA. Tim Strange built Domino, and everybody knows Tim Strange, and Tim Strange knows everybody. So like when it came time to start building that truck and getting it out to SEMA, he did a lot of the heavy lifting. I mean, he knew the contacts, he knew the people that we wanted to reach out to. I was a big part of just kind of the overall design of it. But when it came down to the execution side of it, I mean, he drove it, and he did a fantastic job with that. So after selling Domino and getting into Twisted and building it, and once we made the decision that we wanted to bring it out to SEMA, I had to explain who Chris was. I had to explain who I was. I mean, because I'm reaching out to these different companies and looking for any type of support, no matter what it would have been, just promotional support, any from whether it be product support, anything that we could get to try to help move along with the build and really have true build partners along with it. I had a lot of selling to do just to try to people see our vision of what we wanted to do, people to trust me that, we were going to bring a product to the marketplace that was going to wow people, which we did, and really get to show off Chris England's talents, really get to show off what Mobile Toys, Chris Pate and Dave Cruz and all those guys, what they were able to do with the interior of it. And do everything that we could to just kind of promote these guys out into the scene in a bigger way. And it was a lot of work. I mean, everything from social media of what I was doing to the phone calls that I was making in the afternoons and the evenings and the emails, just reaching out to anybody that would listen. And I couldn't be more pleased on how everything turned out.
Yeah, I didn't really think about this, when we connected and I said, hey, let's get you on the pod, but it's almost like steps 1 through 200 SEMA.com. I mean, because once you got to SEMA, you're smart enough to know that, hey, before with Domino, I liked the feeling, but I didn't do it. Right. So Tim does all that work, and you probably took it for granted, not in a way that you're just like, oh, that's Tim made the call and it's easy. So now you've got the hustle behind the muscle, and you're like, okay, I want to do this and maybe prove to myself, and I want to have this challenge, and that's part of the build, and that's fun. But I don't think people realize too, especially in your case, you made it look easy. There's not a lot of behind the scenes that shows that it's not, right? So because people don't always show like, hey, I just spent 2 hours on the phone. I've gotten rejected by, X, Y, and Z. They don't really show that. And then to actually deliver. And now I could see where it becomes a cycle where now you've got it. And it's not just a Tim Strange cycle. It's, hey, it's a Terry Rose cycle. I did this. I general contractor this. I led this. I'm a businessman. I know how to create a spreadsheet and work with these people. And so I think that that's a cool concept for people to take from this interview is there's a lot of things that go on because we get that all the time. And it's like, you've got the usual suspects. You've got the, let's say the 30 builders that are always going to be, bring 3 vehicles to SEMA. They've got it on autopilot,
That's right.
But if you're out there and you're listening and you think you want to go to SEMA and take a build to SEMA, then there's going to be some pointers. Now to start off, I guess I might as well say it right now. I think you and I said the same thing. In 2015, to go to SEMA, you probably had to have 85 to 100,000. And I feel like in 2022, trying to get to 2023 SEMA, or 2021 going to 2022 SEMA, what I saw, and I think we talked about that. I don't know if we talked about this on air or off air, but I felt like it automatically went to 250. Like I was just it was crazy. And I don't know if it's because labor's getting that hard or the 3D printing and the interior. And once you set that bar, so I'll let you go with that. You fill in however you want, but it's crazy in the course of, again, 15 to 22, your two SEMAs that you were at, the amount of money that's changed, and the experience. So
yeah, for sure. And it's not just because of, cost of materials and all this stuff like that. It's just the quality of builds that are coming out anymore. I mean, all of these builders that you're talking about, and you're right, there's some top guys that always bring it, but there's a lot of these other guys that are lesser known. I mean, for example, like Chris England, that are also bringing it too. So everybody's got to step up their game. So you're getting much more creative. You're putting much more into the builds. Chris Pate and Mobile Toys. I mean, these guys are incredible. Like the interior that was in Twisted, the interior that they put in Ricky Holly's, in Lolita. I mean, they're world class. I mean, I would put them up against anybody out there. They didn't start doing hot rod interiors and trucking full interiors until the last, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago. I mean, they're kind of new to the game. They are primarily a stereo equipment, and Chris is such a talented, hardworking guy that he is driven. Man, he is driven. I mean, I don't even know if this guy sleeps, and he's always going to push himself to be the best. And right after when they announced all of the awards for Lone Star Throwdown, that show's right in his backyard in Conroe, Texas. So within an hour about of where he lives, and he wanted to come out of there, really showcasing what he did. And I mean, best truck, best SUV, best interior, I think he had the best classic truck, best hot rod. I mean, it won them all. And like his work is just phenomenal. So you get people that are really stepping up their game and really stepping up the builds out in the marketplace. So yeah, of course, the cost and pricing and everything, what people are putting into it is much higher. If you don't have, a supercharged LS, or if you don't have an LT motor, and I mean, everything is just moving up to the next level, the next level, the next level. And, I love seeing it because the builds are incredible. But yeah, at some point, to like what you said earlier, I'm going to have to get something where, Sarah and I can just jump in and drive on the weekends, which was actually what we did this weekend. We took my dog out and we went out in our 92 OBS and had the red velour seats in there and just, just cruising around in it. And we love it. I mean, that's just something that we can get out and kind of do. And we missed that. So you can't quite do that in a vehicle like Twisted. So. Or Domino. So
yeah, and I could see where it just kind of gets away. When you look at it, and as a SEMA builder now, because you are a SEMA builder, whereas maybe before you were a SEMA owner, but you are a true SEMA builder now. So when you look at that, how did you decide like the concept, who you were going to go with? Did you get rejected by somebody because of time and you switched it up and it worked out? What's some of that process when you sat down at the drawing board and you're like, okay, I remember 76 GMC. If I remember, I'm pretty sure it was red and white, like crimson, red and white. You sent me the picture. I'm like, oh, sweet. This thing's going to be sweet. He's going to put, 20 grand into it and he's going to drive it, enjoy it. And then he's like, we're going full bore. Twisted's going full bore. and it completely changes. So at that point, what's the thought process, with Twisted, when you guys say family meeting, sit down, now I gotta get a concept, a few concepts. I've heard some guys like to get 3 different renderings. Walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we bought Twisted when we still had Domino, actually. And so I started blowing it apart, just doing some of the simple stuff myself. Got into some rust areas up on the back part of the cab, right up there where the top fits on. It was beyond my ability to repair all of that. So I reached out to Chris, and he was already going to do my OBS. He was going to do some paint and stuff on it. And I was like, hey, can I swap the two out? Can I bring this Jimmy up there and have you do some work on it? And we'll just do the OBS later. And so we brought it up there. He started doing some work and everything on it. And then by chance, I had Domino out at a Cars and Coffee down in Columbia, Tennessee, and ran across a gentleman that wanted to purchase it. And the next day, we were unloading it into his garage and into his collection. So that, selling it then and then having the GMC up at Chris's shop, it really started making me think about it. It's like, I love this scene. I love being out on the scene and having so many friends out there. It's like I quickly found myself without any type of vehicle. So I called Chris and I let him know that I sold Domino, and he was like, what does that mean for this build? And I was like, I don't know yet, but hang tight. And the first phone calls I made was to I called Josh up there at Roadster Shop, and I was like, hey, what's this new chassis that I see you got for these K5 Blazers? And it started from there. The next thing I know, I'm on the phone with Pace Performance. I got my LS3 on the way, and I reach out to Rendered Rides through Instagram and got his contact information. I was like, hey, can you do me a few different renderings? Here's kind of the general ideas of what I'm looking for. He shot us 2 or 3 different options, and we started going down this path. And the way Twisted is different, and I talked about this at SEMA, the Twisted is a mix of kind of old school looks and then new school technology. And so what I wanted on the outside of Twisted was all original body lines. Like I didn't want to tuck bumpers. I didn't want to shave door handles, shave anything like that. I really wanted the body lines of the truck to kind of stay original. But I wanted all the performance. I wanted all the luxury. So there came the Roadster Shop chassis. There went the LS3. And then when we went to the interior, I wanted something that just completely would blow everybody away. And I actually contracted Chris Pate probably about a year in advance. And just to get on his timeline of a build and stuff. And it pushed it because of, as we were trying to build, doing all the body and stuff like that, it was hard to get a radiator. It was hard to get steering columns. It was hard to get AC. I mean, the supply chain on things just took a while to get. So it kind of pushed things out. And so by the time it got ready for interior, I flew up David Cruz from Texas, and he and I just had a kind of a brainstorm session. And I showed him different images of trucks that I was interested in. And it was all new stuff. It was the new GMC Hummer. It was, I think we looked at some concept vehicles. But then we ran across the Rivian truck. And the Rivian truck, the way the dash has kind of a body line, it made me think of the square body, the trim on the outside of the square body. And he used whatever app he had on his phone. I don't even know what he did, but he took a picture of the empty shell with a dash, and he grafted over the picture that I sent him and just kind of set it on there. And I was like, that's it. That's what we want. And he said, I can do it. So that was kind of the whole thing on the interior. We sent it down there. He spent about 6 months on kind of designing and building everything from scratch. And he nailed the vision almost perfectly. And actually to the point where Sarah and I, she had never seen the Rivian truck in person. And we were out at Home Depot the other day, and there's one in the parking lot. And I was like, hey, look in the window. And she looked in there and she goes, wow, that looks just like Twisted. And it does. I mean, he did such a fantastic job on knocking that out, even to the point where at SEMA, people actually thought we pulled an interior out of a Rivian truck and put it in there, not realizing that it was all hand designed and hand built and, cut out on CNC machines and 3D printers and everything else that they use in a really advanced shop like Mobile Toys. So,
how did you, when you think about it, so you and Chris, you say, hey, hold tight. You got to fix that rust no matter what we do with it. So that's going to get done. So you're working on that. And then you've got Rendered Rides. You've got the guys at RS. at what point are you like, hey, I know I want MTI? Is that your first call? Is that where you're just like, I've already been blown away with what I've seen from what you guys do? You're like, hey, I want Chris on it. I want David on it. I want these guys on it because I know what they're doing and what they're bringing.
Yeah. So I went to, it was 1 year at SEMA. I met one of his sales guys, and I was looking at everything. You know, there's the stereo boxes that they do. They make these, I don't want to say prefab boxes because they're much nicer than a prefab box that you can drop in your trucks and stuff. And I'd actually ordered one of those and had in my daily driver. And so super build quality and all of that. So I was at a car show, and I think it was actually Good Guys here in Nashville. And I'm friends with Jesse Greening, and Jesse had a red Chevelle sitting there. And I walked by and I looked at the interior of it and had a real rich, dark brown interior inside of it. And I asked Jesse, I was like, man, who did this interior? And he was like, yeah, Mobile Toys out of College Station. I was like, man, I didn't even know they did full interiors. So I called Chris Pate and talked to him. He walked me through a little bit. I happened to be in Houston a couple of weeks after that. I stayed an extra day so I could drive up to College Station. Went to his shop, saw some builds that he had going on. He had this, mid 60s Cadillac convertible in there. That's just insane stereo system, insane interior. And the more I talked to him, the more I wanted him to be involved with the interior. So when it got close to bringing Twisted out there, we were, obviously for the months up throughout doing all the body work and everything like that. He was like, I got my guy, David Cruz. He was like, he's one of my top guys. He was like, that's who I want to put on the build. And I was like, fantastic. I was like, I'll reach out to him. And we shared some ideas. And like I said, I flew him up here to Tennessee so he could take a look at the truck itself, take some measurements on some things and kind of go ahead and get his creative mind flowing. And David is one of the most creative guys I think I've ever met. I mean, his vision, the interior of Twisted, it was primarily brown, but then you got this deep red in there too. And that was him. And he made the recommendation of that deep red. And Sarah and I had flown down there to pick out all the materials. And it took a little bit of convincing. And I mean, he kept showing the swatches together and all of that. And Chris Pate came over and I was like, Chris, what would you do? He goes, if I'm you, I'm putting that red into it. I'm like, all right, done. I trust you guys. And they had a vision in their mind. They could see it. I struggled with it a little bit with that red and that brown together, but man, I'm so glad that we took that route, but I 110% made the right choice of having Mobile Toys do that interior. And I wouldn't hesitate to bring a next build or the next build or whenever down to them. Actually, my dually that I'm driving around, I'll order some stuff for it that he's bringing to me at Battle in Bama, because I mean, they do some top-notch stuff, and I couldn't speak more highly of them.
Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LS-LT-based power plant? We've got great news for you. PSI Conversion is offering our listeners 10% off your order. Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com. And don't forget, use code C10 Talk and save 10% today. Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. It all started in the original owner's garage. From humble beginnings of a couple parts in a garage to a 2-building manufacturing facility making over 6,000 parts, Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They not only design the products, but also design the tooling to build the products, guaranteeing quality control. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. Aluminum strips are double polished, creating a mirror finish, and crystal clear anodized. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com. You've heard me talk about my gauges. Dakota Digital. I love them. Don't forget the interior of your build. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. Whether you want a direct fit into the stock bezel or something custom. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. The new RTX series is really incredible. I think it stands for retro, but it should stand for rad. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. You can change the lighting colors, customize the reading in the message centers, and do it all from the mobile app. That's right, the HDX and RTX series have Bluetooth technology, so you can mess with them from your phone. I'm looking at RPM, trip odometer, percent fuel, oil pressure, and now I have the GPS set up. I can tell you direction, elevation, and even outside temp. Damn, son, it's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com.
I 110% made the right choice of having Mobile Toys do that interior. And I wouldn't hesitate to bring a next build or the next build or whenever down to them. Actually, my dually that I'm driving around, I'll order some stuff for it that he's bringing to me at Battle in Bama, because they do some top-notch stuff, and I couldn't speak more highly of them.
Yeah, and for the audience, I'm just scrolling through some of my picks from SEMA and Twisted, and that red is kind of a deep maroon red, would you call it like that?
It's rich, yeah,
it's very rich, and it really works well with, ironically, the wood inserts. So the tan or the darker brown and everything else on the side. So we could post all this, but it pops, and it really, and then the contrast of the door panels and then the dash and the way that it all flows together, because you were going for that twisted just build, really, because you're thinking, I want everything. It's funny, even in stock vehicles, people think, oh, well, the dash and the door panels, they don't match. So it's like, oh no, if you go in and you're like, I'm going to spray it all one color, then it's like, well, that's probably not how it would be. So to do it the way you did it and go and think, well, this is a Rivian style interior, and that getting that contrast, it just pops. And it's just one more reason why Twisted is so amazing and why you made the right decision. And I could see it. I could see where you're like, dude, why would you not want to go with these guys?
Right. And they're so impressive. And I looked at what they did with, Ricky's, Lolita. Ricky's a good friend of mine. It's incredible. Like, I can sit down in his and just look at and find all the different details. And what's amazing is they knocked his out in a really short time. When they finally got it to do the interior for SEMA, I can't remember the exact week, so I don't want to quote it, but I think it was really just a few weeks for them to do the interior, not months, weeks to do, to get that one done and to get it out there to SEMA. And it's incredible. And, I've seen, he's been at every show. I think he's won best of show everywhere he's been with it, including Lone Star. And then even this what was the last one he was just in? But yeah, same thing. Lone Star Throwdown, maybe it was his last one, but I think he got the best of show in every one he's been at, and it's very well deserved. It's incredible of a vehicle. Yeah, because I think he went to Houston Autorama right after, and then LST, and then I don't know. There's even another one down there that I think he showcased that he won some more hardware, but his interior as well. So you say, okay, I know I want to get MTI on it, and what does that take? So kind of going back from you as your journey with Twisted and the SEMA walkthrough. So hey, I want you, Chris. I want to contract you for this build. Hopefully SEMA 2022 is what you're looking at, backdating this. Right. What does that take? That takes, money. It takes, I want to get on the schedule. Walk us through a little bit of that. I put down a deposit to get on his calendar, and it was the first thing through. So I put down, and it was a substantial deposit down to hold my spot. And then when I delivered it, I paid half up front, and then when I picked it up, I paid the second half. Actually, I think I did that was the original plan and everything, but I think I paid him a couple installments throughout there too, because we had an original plan and we knew it was going to be custom dash. We knew I was going to send him an empty shell. So everything, the door panels, the dash, everything was going to be built. And as we continued, it got more and more detailed, and the build got a little bit more expensive, as they all do.
Yeah, for sure.
But the direction it was going, it was all worth it. So when he called and said, "Here's where we're at," I sent him the money and go pick it up. I mean, and he kind of did a little bit of an unveiling with me. David did. Chris was actually at another show, so he wasn't there when I went to go pick it up. And David, who I don't think he had slept for about 5 days straight trying to get this thing finished for Sarah and I to come down there and pick it up. And when I walked into that shop on that Saturday afternoon, man, I was floored, absolutely floored when I first saw this thing in person, because I'd seen it. He sent me pictures throughout, and like every Monday morning about 5 a.m, I'd get a whole list of pictures from the week before, except once he got to the point where he was wrapping everything. And so I saw everything that was built and constructed, and I saw the basic shapes, and I knew where he was going. And once he started wrapping everything, putting the color down, putting Cerakote finishes on, I stopped seeing it. And he would send me a teaser every now and then, but I didn't see the full color mix and everything until I walked in and saw it in person. And it blew me away, just the same way it blows everybody else away when they walk up on it and see it, because it goes back to that whole theme of Twisted. When you see it just out there, you're like, man, that's a clean K5, that's a clean Jimmy. You walk up on it and you see that interior, you see that engine bay, and that's what kind of blows you away, because you don't expect that when you first see it. Because most of the trucks or any vehicle that has that custom of an interior, or that wild, and that clean of an interior, you start seeing a lot of body mods. There's, flush glass, or this, just trimmed. We didn't do all of that. So the outside looked original. It just looked super clean, but original. And to walk up there and see that interior, I mean, that's that whole Twisted kind of theme of it.
Now, I haven't seen a Rivian interior. I've seen them driving around. I'm definitely going to challenge myself to kind of go look now. Do they have the wood grain like you do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because that just, I mean, to me, the wood, knowing that the K5s and the Jimmys, they come from that, that Cheyenne, that Silverado, and then for you to keep that, it's I feel like it's like this mahogany, like it's like this leather cognac. We're sitting in there, and we're just, it's literally like a cigar bar in Twisted. So it's so funny to just sit in that. And I think that's why it's so well received, is because people don't expect that. They expect, I guess I would say a little less, and you're giving a lot more.
Right. And that's what we wanted to do. Like I said, we wanted, with Domino, Tim did all of his magic. I mean, he is a metal magician, man. He can shape metal. That thing had, I think we counted, it was over 50 body mods by the time you did everything on it. So all of the customization on Domino was on the exterior. And, the interior was custom and stuff too, but it was, the big eye catcher there was kind of the exterior and just the overall look. And then with Twisted, we wanted kind of that surprise. We wanted people to come up and walk by, like have that interior catch their eye and make them do a double take. And we watched that when we debuted it at SEMA. I mean, we saw it 100 times over every day. I mean, everybody that walked by like stopped and had to back up and take another look at it, because it is, I mean, it's so unique. And I mean, it'll shock people, man. I mean, so in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I did it every day, and I saw it every day. It was like, I see something new, or I got to sit in it, and I'd see this and I'd see that. And it was just all these little things that, and SEMA can be so overwhelming anyways, because once you take Twisted, once you take Domino, once you take Lolita, you put them in a, Cars and Coffee, or you put them, it's beyond, it stands out. But at SEMA, there's so many, and you're moving and shaking, and it's just overload. And then when you could take the time, the one thing that I really enjoy is, as a media, I can kind of stay a little late sometimes, or get in there a little early. And that's just like, you're looking at these vehicles, and you really get to take the time, not be bumped around. The lights are still on, and it's essentially orgasmic, because it is so much going on, and you can process it a little bit better. And the vehicles that are there, and Twisted was one. I mean, it won awards. It stood out. You guys had to feel so good about it. Was there a time where, now that, we're, a year removed from the process, when you're getting the bills, do you have an estimate from like MTI? We don't have to get into the hard numbers, but it's like, okay, it's going to cost this. And then you're like, okay, I'm putting this much down, I'm paying this much. And then it starts to change. And are you like, I got to work some overtime. I got to sell something. I got to do something, because it always seems like it ends up being more.
Oh, absolutely. And it always does. I mean, that's the reason why Domino was called Domino. I mean, it started off as a pretty simple restoration, and it dominoed into this, supercharged LS3 Pro Touring truck. And same thing with Twisted. You go in with, you have a budget in mind. You have to. And what I've quickly realized is, like, whatever your budget is, add 20%, because that's probably what's going to happen. And if you can stay within that, that's pretty good too. So on the interior stuff, I mean, if he had to go out and recreate this, and it is a big number. I mean, it's a number that probably most people wouldn't even spend on buying a vehicle. But to have the success that we had with the build, and to achieve the overall theme of what we wanted to do, that's what I was willing to pay. And, so was it expensive? Yeah. Was it worth it? Hell yeah. I mean, their work is phenomenal, and you can't put, it's not going to be a budget interior, with the type of work that they put out there. So, I wouldn't have wanted, I mean, even if we tried to back it down and do something less, we could have, and it still would have been super nice, but I wanted to showcase what they could do. And, and not that he needed any help from me, but they were doing it on their own. But, I wanted to make sure everybody saw it. And we took this, once we did SEMA, to your point, we won the most creative interior award from TMI. That got us into to the Barrett-Jackson Cup. So once we committed to going to the Barrett-Jackson Cup, the following week was the Grand National Roadster Show. So I was checking off, bucket list items. These are some big shows that I've always wanted to go out to. I'm over here in Tennessee on the East Coast side of things, and can't hit all these West Coast ones. But we made sure that we did. And, as soon as we got that opportunity, I sat down and talked with Sarah, because that's a big time commitment. Barrett-Jackson's a kind of a 10-day event. You got to be there a couple of days earlier, and you leave at the very end. And it's a big commitment to be able to do that. So we talked through about it. We understood it was going to be a pretty high cost, and kind of just all the travel, all the hotels, everything that it was going to be associated. And she asked me the question. She goes, "Will we ever get the invite again?" And I was like, "No." She was like, "Well, then we're going." And I was like, "Let's do it." So I emailed the guys back at Barrett-Jackson. I said, "Count us in." So, and we never looked back. And, and I'm blessed. Like Sarah, she's a saint, and I couldn't do any of this stuff without her. She supports me better than I would have ever imagined anybody would. And, those thousands of miles that we put on pulling that trailer around, I mean, she was my co-pilot when we did it. I mean, she was the one riding with me as we took it from Tennessee to Scottsdale, then from Scottsdale to Pomona, then from Pomona back to Nashville, and then with me when we took it to Texas and to Louisiana and to all the different states. And, I'm sure that's rare, but I don't let that go unrecognized either, man. I know I'm like I said, I'm truly blessed with that, and I appreciate her every day.
Well, and I mean, kudos to that, and that you're acknowledging that. But even at SEMA, she was there every day. Every day we had base camp at UP Car Parts, and that was kind of all of our base camp. And she was there every morning. I'd get a smile from Sarah. So I was essentially starting my day the same way you were, with a smile
Absolutely.
from your wife. But that was a great thing. And she's very warming and compassionate. She's behind you. She's behind Twisted, and she's behind her man, and she's behind her team, the team. And I think that that's important. So I think for us to not acknowledge that, if you think about, if you're the audience and you're thinking you want to go through this, we've seen the other end of it where people are ready to drop out. They don't have the support. They might not have the monetary, because it does seem like, I'm sure at times, and people know this that are listening, whether they're just a builder trying to get to the next, Cars and Coffee, or to, the truck show down on the corner, whatever it might be. There's always something, right? So it seems like there's different levels, and to have somebody that's got the support like that, that's going to help you through this whole process of SEMA and the tour that follows along after, the twisted tour.
Right. And it takes a lot of trust. I mean, because, she's not in the details of everything of what we're doing, the things I have to order. Like, obviously I'm sharing with her kind of everything that we're doing. But she knew, like, if it was something that I wanted for the build, or if it was an event we wanted to attend, I mean, she trusted that it was for the right reasons, and she went along with me and she supported me. Like you said, I mean, she was right there with me, and I know that's not going to be everybody and stuff like that. But I hope you include family, include spouses, include people when you're doing this type of build. Make it a part of it for everybody. And she'll be one of the first to tell you, is like, all those trips and all those hours, like, it helped us. And, she and I will be married 18 years and stuff, and we have a great marriage. It made it better. I mean, It's like, when you start making trips like that and showing that type of commitment to one another and that type of support to one another, how could it not? I mean, man, I drug her all over this place. I mean, when we left Pomona, it was 2,000 miles to get back home. And I was like, well, if we can knock out 1,000 miles in this first day, and then we can knock out 1,000 miles the second day, then we can get to where we needed to be. And Lubbock was the mid spot. And it was, no, I'm sorry, not Lubbock. Amarillo was the midway point. And it was 1,050 miles. Well, I didn't take into consideration 2 hours of time change.
Yeah, you're going west to east.
Right. So we left at 4 a.m. and we rolled into Amarillo at 10:50 at night. I mean, that's a long day. And she was a trooper. I mean, hung in there. I mean, she ate gas station food with me. And, we just filled up and kept going, and filled up and kept going. So.
Yeah, that's a great kind of something that you didn't perceive probably happening. But anytime you can be stronger with your teammate and your partner, then that's cool. And she's beside you. So
absolutely,
it's cool I would assume too, to give, to get, her perspective. Like, when you're picking out and saying, should I do the red, or should I do this, the color? I don't know that why did you guys switch the color? Were you always of the exterior? What was your thoughts? Did you go through a few different color schemes when rendered rides, or did you know, hey, I really kind of like this color?
We did. And we, because originally we talked about doing an orange and white. And we were actually pretty close to that. And I saw one, I can't remember. I saw it somewhere. It had just been debuted at a show somewhere. And I was like, well, I can't do that. It looks just like it. Yeah. And then I started looking at different shades of blue and white. And we had kind of a medium blue. And it wasn't much longer after that, I saw one that was really close. But what I hadn't seen is any of them with that really dark blue, blue and that white together. Because it started getting tougher to build something kind of stand out like that, and those dark blues are tough. I mean, it shows every speck of dust, and every not scratch mark, but if you're polishing on it with a rag, it shows every mark on there. So it's one that you got to do a whole lot of maintenance, especially in the first few months. But I couldn't have been more pleased with it. I mean, that's one of the big things that we've got, is like, everybody's just like, man, the color on this thing just pops, especially in the, whether you're inside in a convention center like at SEMA, or if you're outside in the sun. I mean, it glows.
Where did you pull those from?
So we had, after he did a couple different other renderings for us, and we started narrowing it down to that dark blue and white. And so I just went to Chris, and Chris, I kind of showed him the general areas of where I wanted to be. And he did several spray out panels with us. He played around with the pearl on a little bit on the whites, and Sarah and I went up there, because I pretty much everything, all the colors, exterior, interior, everything, she was a part in the whole decision as we went through. So I took her up there. Chris had the spray out panels. We walked out in the sun and kind of, moved them around a little bit. And she was like, I like those. And I was like, I do too. That's what we're going with. And so it's from Exalta. It's one of their indigo blues and, and kind of that pearl white. And they just match perfectly together.
It's funny when I see a color like that, you always kind of go to like these, the newer vehicles, the Toyotas, the Mercedes, and those, they're kind of a pastel. They're really cool colors. But when I see Twisted, it takes me back to like, I think I've seen it on like a 54 Chevy 55. It's a blue. Then you see it on like, it's funny because like there's like Buick Skylarks that at one point were that color. And then over time they get more silver as the paint fades. And so when you see that, it's cool because it's like a homage to the ancestry of GM. Like there's those blues in those cars, whether it's a Nova, a Skylark, a Caddy. There's some of those blues in there that we've seen as we've grown up, and you guys just nailed it. And then I'm a two-tone guy, so the white just takes it home.
Oh yeah. That's what we had to, when we were building it. I knew I wanted it to be two-tone, man. I wanted that marquee trim going down the side, separating everything. I mean, it's you can't put just any old trim on there. You got to have that nice jewelry on there from marquee, and it just made it pop. Like I remember after we got everything painted and got everything back and had the interior in it, and we went up there to hang the trim and the bumpers and everything. And as it was coming together, and man, I mean, you couldn't take the smile off my face, man. Everything was just coming together on the build. So,
well, another thing too. So like I'm an orange and white, like I love orange and white. So you're talking orange and white and I love it, but I don't know that it would be as sophisticated when you did the blue the way you did the blue. If you took the same exact, even if you came up with a different color of orange and you did the orange and white and the interior, but the blue with the white and then the richness of the interior and then the red to just make it pop, it really is a mind explosion. And that's, that has to just make you feel. It's easy to sit and talk about it because you probably struggle with it, trying to make all these decisions. But then it's like, oh yeah, I made that. That was perfect. We did that,
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, coming up with the concept of the overall build and everything like that. And of course, everything evolves, right? I mean, as you kind of get through and you get closer to it. And once we decided on the design of the interior and stuff, in my mind, I wanted that deep, rich brown the whole time, right? So we knew that it was there, but adding that red, I give all the credit to David and those guys and stuff at Mobile Toys, and I'm glad we did, because it did. I mean, it took the build to another level, and and it's not for everybody. I mean, you know how people are on internet and social media and stuff. I mean, you always get some clown saying, the interior doesn't match the color, and I'm like, well, it wasn't supposed to. It was purposely designed. So, but I will have to say, I mean, I think from an overall, the feedback on Twisted has been phenomenal. I mean, it's 99% positive, which, anymore on social media, and just you get all the keyboard warriors out there wanting to, talk smack about any builds. That doesn't happen much on Twisted. I mean, I think it's been kind of a fan favorite for a while.
What about small decisions like, for example, the GMC on the front and the Twisted band on the back? And did you just kind of work through those? And as you're going around the build, you're like, okay, I don't want to stand out here. I want to stand out here, and kind of, find that balance.
When you're looking for classic Chevy or GMC truck parts, brotherstrucks.com is your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration parts. So whether you are restoring an original or looking to customize that classic truck, brotherstrucks.com has thousands of the highest quality truck parts for you to choose from. So head over to brotherstrucks.com and order your free catalog today. And don't forget to follow Brothers on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates and special offers too.
C10 Nation,
What's stopping you? Well, CPP has you covered. They offer multiple different options to make the disc brake conversion as easy as possible on both you and your wallet. From stock height conversions to their Big Brake Grand Slam kit. How's your altitude? You need to get a little lower? CPP has you covered there too. They offer a wide variety of drop kits for you to choose from. Head over to classicperform.com, that's classicperform.com, to save big today.
Hey guys, how about a happy 10-year anniversary to the team at Pro Performance? For 10 years, Travis and his team have provided their customers the best products on the market for our trucks. They sell Dakota Digital, Bear Brakes, Boyd Welding, QA1, Vintage Air, and more. They're your one-stop shop for all your truck part needs, stocking fast-moving items to help with production delays. So think Pro Performance when you are creating that parts list for your build. azproperformance.com. That's azproperformance.com. Did you just kind of work through those, and as you're going around the build, you're like, okay, I don't want to stand out here. I want to stand out here, and kind of, find that balance?
Yeah, so once again, on the outside, we wanted everything to look stock. And so I knew I wanted to have some billet pieces into it. So I already had the GSI door handles. I had the Ring Brothers mirrors and stuff like that. And I had the original emblems, both the High Sierra as well as the GMC and GMC Jimmy that was on the fenders. And I took that up to Greg up at 110 Machining. He's also in Portland. And we were talking about things, and he was like, I've made a full tailgate skin before. He was like, just a blank one and stuff like that. And I was like, can you make one and put the Twisted logo into it? He goes, oh yeah, we can do that. And so he cut that out, and we took it and got it polished and everything like that. And it looked fantastic. And we actually, the first emblems that we made for the fenders actually said Twisted. And I looked at it and I was like, and it looked great. I mean, but it kind of, it drew too much attention. I wanted those stock emblems back. So I had him cut the GMC Jimmy, and I had him cut the High Sierra and everything on it. And we put it on, and we were all like, man, we're glad we didn't go the other route, because this looks perfect. I mean, it ties back that old school looks, brings up the modern everything with these billet emblems. And I mean, his skill and his capability of what he does. I mean, Greg's just awesome. I mean, a lot of people probably know Greg as the Cap King. I mean, he does all of those spinning center caps on the big old American Force wheels and all of those. I mean, he's the guy that's kind of making all of those out there in the marketplace. And I mean, he's just super talented. One of the same thing, one of the hardest working guys I know. And truly appreciate all the work he put in it. And same thing, it's like, I knew it wasn't going to be cheap, but that's okay. I was willing to pay for it. And, you pay for quality like that.
And once you start, you just kind of have to keep going. Like you guys made that decision, and that's a really good thing. Most of the time it does kind of domino, snowball, and we've heard the story, a million times over, but you knew and had a vision of, hey, I'm going, second to none on this. I'm going all the way. So there's no compromise. So why would I think anything different? So it's cool that you did that. And it's cool that you recognized like the example of using the Jimmy logos versus the Twisted, because I mean, I think, my opinion, you mid the right decision. You're going for the old school exterior. It looks good. You just classed it up a little bit. Right. It's almost like, and I don't want to be negative, but if you would have done the Twisted, and I could see the concept of it, but it would have taken away from what you were doing. And whereas the Jimmy added to it, what I mean?
That's the way I felt too. Because I mean, and actually when we got up there, Chris was kind of test fitting everything. And I got up there and he had the Twisted logo on the fender. And I sat there for a minute and I kept looking at it, and he goes, something's on your mind. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want this. And he was like, because I asked him, I was like, does he still have the original GMC Jimmy ones? Can he scan those and go ahead and cut one of those, and so we can compare the two? And so that's what he did. And Greg cut those GMC Jimmy logos out, and we've set those up there. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I want. That's the look I'm going for right there. So.
So what I think is probably one of the hardest decisions in making building and creating a vehicle, and it has such a huge payoff, is the right wheel. How did you work through in selecting and figuring out and going with Forgiato, and was that a process?
That was a process. And that one, like, we came up with the name Twisted early on. It was one thing that, Sarah and I, because she even said it, she was like, she goes, even your Instagram, my old Instagram used to be, 68 C10 Domino. And so obviously I had to change all of that. And so we came up with that Twisted name, and thus T Rose Twisted on Instagram pretty early on. And I was looking at all different wheels. Brian Hayes, who owns Brian's Motorsports up here in Hendersonville, Tennessee, great friend of mine.
As good as they get. Do they get any better?
Dude is awesome. I love him. I mean, he's like a brother to me. And he's one of the largest Forgiato dealers in the whole Southeast. He spoke nothing but good things about him. And so I went out onto the Forgiato website. Of course, I knew of their wheels. I knew of a lot of things that they had. You typically don't see them on these trucks like that. And I was going through all the different styles, and the one that we chose is not a brand new style. It was actually released a few years earlier. But if you look at it, it's kind of like a turbine that's twisted a little bit. And that whole twisted look of it kind of tied in with the name of the Jimmy being twisted. And so it was kind of a perfect match. We chose the finishes of the wheel. I knew I wanted that brush finish on the face of it, and that, that polished lip and everything. And Forgiato makes a super, super high quality wheel in the first place. So when they came in and we slapped them on the chassis, I was like, this is going to be incredible. It brought a lot of excitement to the build. Anytime you pick wheels out, it's a big decision, and it's never easy because there's 1,000, killer options out there, and you're always worried, do I make the right choice on one? And I really do. Not everybody liked the Forgiatos. I got asked a million times over, why didn't I have, wheel brand X or wheel brand Y on there, these killer billets, which make fantastic wheels. But once again, we were trying for a little bit of a different theme with Twisted, and we felt that the Forgiatos and that look of that particular wheel really tied into the overall theme of the build.
Yeah, and I think they work. It totally works, having that twisted turbine in there, and then having the lip be the way that you did it, and having that polished, it made it all pop. So it really brought it together.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of, we did the same thing even on those emblems, where everything had kind of a machine face where they cut everything, but then all of the edges of it were polished. So same thing on the tailgate skin, all the emblems, and it all tied back into kind of how we've got the wheels and everything on.
A cool thing on the tailgate band, you kind of switched the S around a little bit. What was the thought behind that?
So we had he was our creative director here at work, and his name was Tommy Upson. Unfortunately, he's no longer working with us. He actually moved down to Florida, and he's doing some great work down there now. I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, I'm trying to develop a logo for this truck, and I want something subtle but unique and all of that. And we talked about some ideas, and he sent me, gosh, in a matter of no time, he's such a creative guy. He sent me all these different concepts, and he sent one that had the S backwards. And a little bit different. And I was like, man, I like that. I was like, that's it. I was like, as simple as that, the big block letters, kind of like that machine cut look, and just with the S backwards. I was like, that's perfect. And so he drew up the logo, and yeah, man, it's great having friends and, that have those type of talents around you. But yeah, once he created that, we sent that both to Mobile Toys, and we sent it up to Greg to kind of do that into the logo. And yeah, it turned out really killer.
Yeah, it just really adds all together. And if you didn't do it, we wouldn't know anything else. But there's so many little touches that go into these type of builds, these very, very high level builds. And you got to feel good about that journey, knowing, thinking about Sarah saying, hey, are we going to have an invite to go, to Barrett Jackson and this opportunity again? Do you feel like, because you've been through it with Domino, you've been through it now with Twisted, I know you probably want to take a break, enjoy the OBS, and just, and the kids are still at home, and you've got, it took a lot of life out of you. It gave a lot back too. But don't you feel like it's like, when you build a house, you've got your contractor list, who was good, who was bad. When you build a vehicle, you've got your contractor list. Don't you feel like, or do you feel like, hey, I could do this again, and I could do this again, I could do this again, and I could literally have, Twisted Customs. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to, I'm just saying that because you've been on that whirlwind, how does that kind of shape up?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, a lot of things that went through my mind and all of this, because like we were talking about earlier, I learned a lot from Domino, just kind of, and just sitting back and watch Tim kind of do everything and putting all the efforts that he did there, both marketing the vehicle and all of that. All of the efforts that we put forth on Twisted, where, like I said, where I was driving more of it, I learned every day. I mean, I learned, from what a lot of these companies are looking for when they're talking to potentially sponsor a vehicle or whatever the case may be. And it's what it quickly made me realize is like, man, I love this, man. I love the whole design side of it. I love the whole build process. Now, I wish I had the talent to do the actual build. But I do think I like to think that I have a good vision of an overall product of what I'm looking for as it comes out. And so I do. I mean, I have thought about that quite a bit of, could I be doing more in just in this industry and stuff? And so the last probably 4 or 5 months, I mean, with just everything of what we've done with Twisted and taking it all over, it kind of all came to a pinnacle here just actually last week. So on Friday or Saturday, my wife brought the mail in, and it was this May issue of Classic Truck Performance, and Twisted is on the cover. And, they've got an incredible article in there. It's got artwork by John Jackson, Not Stock Photography, and everything. He came out and shot it. And, that's like, I was checking off boxes left and right with this build. I mean, just in the last 4 months. We took it to all these big shows. I mean, we were winning, we won multiple Best Interior awards. We won Best of awards. We won, I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And I'm not out for it for the trophies. I'm out for it for all of the experiences and all of that. And this whole thing is just kind of blown us away. I mean, and it makes you want to do more of it. Like full time. Of course, I'm doing full time in my job as it is today. And this is all this automotive stuff I don't want to call it a hobby, because it's more than a hobby. I mean, it truly is a lifestyle. It's a passion. I mean, I definitely could never see myself not being a part of the whole scene. So yeah, I think there's a whole lot of outlook to come forward.
Yeah. And I think, it's cool to get that side of it, get that perspective of, you're the general contractor of this whole thing. You're overseeing it, the decisions, the buck is stopping with you. You're using the right people. And it really shows that you pick the right people and you are making the right decisions, right? I mean, you're not always going to make the right decision, but when you look at it, you made a lot of right decisions, if not all of them. And some of that decision might just be saying, I'm going to use MTI and I'm going to trust David. So David's actually making the decision, but you're making the decision to say, I'm going to trust him and I'm going to go with it. This is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's probably a great point. And to kind of even make a little bit of a change kind of in the discussion here, because one thing that I haven't shared a whole lot of, but we've actually sold Twisted. And so that's kind of the newest news that's kind of going out there. And, I was approached online. It was kind of a unique situation where it's the first time I was approached, we were at Barrett Jackson, and there was a gentleman interested in buying it there. And, we had just, it was only like the third place we've taken it out to, and we weren't quite there yet. And we started talking to the guy, super nice guy out of Northern California, still had an interest in buying it and everything, but he had some different things going on. He was building some commercial building and building a house at the same time. And we both kind of agreed, hey, let's talk it later on in the year. And I thought by that point, could I be ready of potentially selling Twisted? Well, about 3 weeks ago, I get a message on Instagram and from a gentleman that was interested in buying it. And I was like, well, it's not really for sale. I was like, and I've kind of already, if I do sell it, I've got a gentleman in California that's wanting to buy it. And he was like, well, what's the price? And so I floated the price out there and he was like, I'll wire you the money tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that, but I was like, I'm not going to sell it out from under the other guy. I was like, I'll reach out to him and then we'll have a follow-up discussion. And so I did reach out to the first guy and told him, and he was like, man, I still want it, but hey, if I can't buy it now, if you want to sell it, that's your decision and everything like that. So I started the conversation back up with a gentleman out of Southern California, and we went back and forth, and next thing I know, he's wiring me money and I'm working with a transporter to send it out to him. And that's probably one of the hardest decisions that we had to make. And, but when I throw this out there, when I threw the price out there, it was a not for sale price. And so I think hopefully all the listeners can kind of understand that I did go out with a pretty high price because I did not want to sell Twisted. But the gentleman that bought it had the means to buy it and he wanted it and didn't negotiate. He accepted the price and said, let's work on the payment and the transportation. And I couldn't walk away from it. I mean, it's I got 2 kids getting ready to go to college and everything else. I mean, it makes a big difference. And hey, if I did want to get into it and start my own business or do something here in the automotive world, I mean, it was a great way to kind of kickstart that too. So still more to come on what we end up doing with it. Will there be another build? I'm sure there will be. To what level, to what extent, I don't know. I mean, I'm still trying to, take it all in actually, because it came in from left field and didn't really expect it. So it's been a lot of mixed emotions. And even this past weekend, it made its debut in Southern California at the quarantine cruise. And I've got everybody out there taking pictures and sending it to me. And I'm like, everybody's just trying to break my heart, I think. But it's all the friends and stuff that I've got and I've made throughout the years that, they were excited about seeing Twisted out there. And, one of my good friends now, Daniel Stewart, he drives Pretty Penny. And I met him at SEMA this past year, and he also won one of the TMI inteior awards. And man, I haven't met a more genuine couple than those guys, and they're fantastic. And
for the audience, we interviewed them at SEMA as well. That's the couple that for his 10 years of sobriety, she got him a C10, and then it evolved from there, and it is one badass truck as well. And that truck was at the TMI booth, and what a great guy and a great family.
Incredible and incredible. And if you know anything about me, or if you know anything about my wife and stuff, we try to be the biggest supporters that anybody can have. And so when they're announcing the awards, they tell that very story about Daniel and his 10 years of sobriety and stuff. And keep in mind, I'd never even known this guy. And I turned around and gave him a big hug, and he hugged me right back. And he and I've been friends since. I mean, we text and stuff like that. So when Twisted showed up at the quarantine cruise, it was kind of like another blessing in disguise. It's parked right behind Pretty Penny, sitting right there. And, so Jessica, the wife, she texts Sarah and she goes, "Oh my God, are you guys here?" And then she goes, "Oh, I forgot you guys sold it." But so I text Daniel, and he got my loves in the truck here, but he goes, "It's been a hell of a lot better if you'd been here with it." And it's stuff like that, man. That's incredible. I mean, just great people, great folks.
Well, I mean, trucks are cool, but the people are cooler. So I think it's cool that Daniel, and he's reaching out to you. The truck is the metal, right? We know that, but it's cool, the journey of Twisted and Domino, and Domino got you to SEMA. It created a buzz for you. You wanted to get back. You found the 76 Jimmy, and then that evolves to the life experience, and it's cool because I got to think, when you had said, hey, I sold it, right? I was kind of like, so for the audience, I think last week we texted and we were like talking about something, and like, hey, I sold Twisted. And I'm like, what? Don't share it. And I'm like, I just posted it. Everybody's losing their mind, just messing with him. And, but I think I got to feel like when you go that big, that you almost know that that's going to happen, because monetarily, I know you're not a quadrillionaire. Okay. So they're, like you said, I had to sell Domino, or when I did sell Domino, that opened more doors. So I think when you go all in on a vehicle like this, I don't think you think, or, only you can tell us, did you think you were going to keep it for more than 3 years? Did you think you were going to keep it for 5 years? Realistically?
I for sure thought I'd keep it for a couple. I did not anticipate selling it in the first year. But it's one of those ones where an opportunity came about, and not that the money was life-changing or anything like that. It's good money and stuff like that, but it does make you change some decisions on what you can do. Because like I said, I've got a freshman and a sophomore in high school. I mean, I got to be thinking about college and all these other things. I joked about, their tuition was parked in the garage anyhow. So it's like, I guess now that we've sold it, I guess I'm going to have to send them on to college after all. But I didn't anticipate it selling that quick. But, one of the things when the opportunity came up, Sarah and I sat down and talked, and I was like, look, we did SEMA, we did Barrett Jackson, and we did Grand National. Those are both, we didn't even expect those two. We did Lone Star, which is a big one that we wanted to kind of throw out there. LST, I mean, that was going to be a big one that we wanted to do. We had other shows. Actually, I've registered for probably about 4 or 5 more shows that I don't have a vehicle for anymore, but because we did not anticipate selling it. But it came down to...
So you bought a C10, and it either had AC at one time or it wasn't even an option. Well, Vintage Air has the solution for you. Their SureFit kits are designed to place the evaporator and hoses behind the dash for a factory clean look. In most cases, the SureFit systems will be controlled by your stock dash controls using their exclusive cable converters. The Vintage Air SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered air conditioning system you can install in your C10. Add the fact that Vintage Air has been the most respected name in performance aftermarket climate control systems. The choice is obvious. VintageAir.com.
Hey guys, I've got Andrew from Painless Wiring on. Andrew, what's the latest?
Just working on producing these GM truck harnesses, our best moving vehicle specific, and we're just, super excited to be able to service such a great community of truck guys.
Made in the USA. You guys are probably cranking them out nonstop. A ton of our audience is out there buying these trucks, building these trucks, and they know, hey, Painless Performance has got me taken care of.
Factory options, aftermarket stuff. If you have any questions, call our tech guys. They'll walk you through anything you need to know, and we'll make sure your truck gets wired up right the first time.
If you want to clean up your underdash, you want to clean up your chassis, it's that easy. Painlessperformance.com, painlessperformance.com. Thanks, Andrew.
We had other shows. Actually, I've registered for probably about 4 or 5 more shows that I don't have a vehicle for anymore, but because we did not anticipate selling it. But it came down to what else were we going to achieve? And, we were going to go to these other shows, and we might, if we're fortunate enough, we win another trophy here or there. You heard me earlier, I'm not a big trophy chaser. It's, for me, it's all about the experience, being out there with friends and doing all of that. I can still do that. And actually, Battle in Bama is coming up. We're still going. I don't have a vehicle, So we're still going down there to support. I want to see, Chris Pate and Ricky and all those guys. I want to see Craig, putting on the show. I mean, these guys are friends. I mean, these are people that if they needed something, they can call me and I'm going to be there for them. And if I needed something, I'm going to call them because they're going to be there for me too. And so it doesn't necessarily, I didn't need to have the vehicle to kind of enjoy this lifestyle and stuff. I mean, it definitely helps. And so I'll have something else. There'll be another build. Will it be as big as Twisted? I don't know. I don't know if it will or not. Will it be the OBS that's in the driveway and just, doing some simple fix ups on it? Maybe that could be it, because I love the scene and I love hanging out with the folks. I mean, shoot, you and I text and chat from time to time outside of anything that we're doing, whether it be for the podcast or any events, just to keep up with one another, man. So, and I love that. I mean, I couldn't ask for more than that. So, I mean, that's fantastic. And, like I said, I'll never be out of the scene. That's for sure. I can't do much about it.
I think, like you said, though, your place might change in the scene. Like Ricky, for example, is a really good example. Ricky, going back to, I don't even know before Charlie Brown, but I'm sure he had more builds. But so Charlie Brown, boom, it sells. Then he does the Grinch, which is freaking crazy. And then he does Lolita. And I think that once you get known as a builder of that caliber, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever really got into the weeds with Ricky about how much wrenching he really does. He's, again, more in my mind of a general contractor that has the different people and the teams and kind of like what you've talked about. So when you look at all that, people are going to look at what's coming out of, Ricky Hawley's garage, Ricky Hawley brothers, what's coming out of Twisted Terry, what's coming out. So once you get that, I think reputation, but also just because you're not chasing trophies, it does feel good to know that somebody wants something that you built and that
That's right.
you did it. You still, again, going back, you said that blue, you said, go ahead, David. You said, I want the Rivian. You said, I want to get that Twisted Side logo. I want that Jimmy. So it does feel good when somebody, courts you, and especially when it's not for sale and they're like, hey, I want to,
And when this guy reached out to me, and he's got an incredible collection, because I'm trying to vet him out. He's a new account on Instagram, and it's not that he's new to it. I think he had an account, deleted it, started over and stuff. So there wasn't much history on there. So I'm trying to find out. And I even said to him, I was like, hey man, no offense. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Do you have cars? Because you know how us guys are, is like we only recognize one another by their vehicles and stuff. And so he sends me a picture of his garage, and it's impressive. It's super impressive. But I zoomed in and I actually saw 3 different trucks in there that I knew. And so I called the first guy. I called Angelo down in Florida, and I was like, hey, your old C10.
Yeah, 68. What's that? Same SEMA as yours, right?
Oh yeah, he came out at the same time. He was about back in 15 and stuff. And I got to know Angelo pretty good because his truck went to Saudi Arabia the same time Domino did, but he didn't go on the trip. So I helped watch his vehicles over there. So I got to know him from then. And he and I and Scott Movick, who's another one of our buddies, we have our group text chains and stuff like that. But so I saw his truck and I was like, hey, do you know who owns it? He was like, the last I heard, it was in California. So I saw 2 other ones on there. Kevin, who had the red Roadster Blazer, and then Tony, who had the gray one. And Tony, Pro Touring Nova on Instagram, I reached out to him and started talking with him. He goes, oh yeah. He was like, yeah, he's very legit. He's, if he's looking to buy it, I mean, he's the type, when he sees something that he wants, he wants to have it, and he's got all the means to be able to do it. And that gave me the confidence to say, okay, yes, I'm willing to sell it. And so when I'm talking to the gentleman, because I asked him, I was like, when did you see it? I was like, were you at SEMA? Were you at, Pomona? Like, where'd you see it? And he was like, I hadn't seen it in person. He was like, I've only seen pictures of it. And I was like, well, you want me to send you some pictures? So I started sending him pictures of the build, showing all the details of the wiring and how everything was done in it. He was like, I don't need them, man. He was like, I've seen enough. I understand the quality of the build and I want it. And we worked out the deal. And like I said, and next thing I know, It took off on a Friday morning and it showed up at his place on Tuesday. And I get a text message on, where's the air ride control? Because I mean, it's all in the console and everything. And next thing I know, I see it on Instagram driving through the cruise and, and everything else. And so I'm glad that it's out. I'm glad he's loving it. Yeah, he actually messaged me over the weekend. And if I knew of anything else or if I was planning another build, and, that's fantastic. I mean, maybe I've got a route to get products out to the market in a different way. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of things going on. I'm sure it's hard to process. And even to this day, sitting here and talking about that, Twisted is not in the garage and it's out in Cali. But like you said, it is a kid, it's a child. It's something you put your life, your heart, your soul, your team into. And of course you're going to vet it, whereas like Barrett, it just goes to whoever bids on it. Right. So you had a little bit of a process there. Speaking of Barrett, so you go to Barrett and then you go to GNRS. A guy from Northern California says, hey, I'm interested. At that point, when you go from Barrett to GNRS to 2,000 miles home and sitting in the truck from 4 a.m. to 10:50 p.m. the first day, and then the second day, I know you had to be processing that to say, and then I wonder if once you decide, okay, this is the not for sale price, right? Or I guess you tell us, was it like, no, we're talking about the kids in college and we're not talking about, but hey, babe, if this guy gave me this, we should probably sell that. Right. And you're like, yeah, we probably should sell that. So yeah, I got to think that that's something that happens once somebody really makes you an offer.
Yeah. And we talked about that. And I'll actually, so this goes back when we first debuted Domino at SEMA in 2015, I had a similar experience, and and a guy came up and he was like, what's the number on the truck? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, oh, he goes, I want to buy it. And I was like, there's no number on the truck. He was like, come on, just tell me a number. And I was like, I don't have a number, it's not for sale. And I talked to a couple builders after that, and not that I was regretting that decision. I was definitely not regretting that decision. I mean, Domino was my first build, and that we kind of brought out into that big stage like that. And so I didn't want to sell it. But I was actually having a conversation with Tim Strange, his good friend, and my friend now too, is Chris Ryan, who's another builder over on the East Coast. And Chris told me the story. He goes, you always have a price. He goes, no matter what. And he goes, if you think your price is here, that's your for sale price, what you really think you'd sell it in the marketplace. He goes, if you have a not for sale, add a big number to it. And he used an example. He actually built his wife a Cadillac, and that debuted out at SEMA. And he did the same thing. He brought it out there. It was the first kind showing it out there, and he brought it out, and a gentleman came up there. So he followed his own advice. He was like, I had a price here. I added 100,000 to it. And that's what I told him as my not for sale price. And the guy said, okay. And so the guy took him on that price. He goes, I had to immediately call my wife and tell her I sold her car, but I made 100,000 more on it than I would have if I was just selling it at any other time. And he goes, you can always build another car. So when this whole thing came about, I told Sarah the same thing. I was like, when we're at SEMA, if anybody is overly interested, that I'm going to have a price in my head. And actually on 2 different times, I told that price to people at SEMA, but no one ever bid out there. It was like I said, it was my not for sale price. Once we got out to Barrett Jackson, and Barrett Jackson is just a different experience all in itself. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? But there's a lot of money running around that place, and you never know who you're talking to. And the first gentleman, when he came up and was talking to me, I told him my not for sale price. And, looking at him, he was casually dressed, wouldn't think much about him. But the more I got to know him throughout the weekend and throughout the week, actually, just super nice guy, super quiet, humble, didn't drink. I mean, just a business guy. And I quickly realized he had 3 builds going on at the same time, which is not cheap. and he just wanted something sooner than later. And so once I found out kind of who he was and what he was doing, good guy, like I said, and I was willing to sell it to him at a later date. I wanted to kind of make sure I went to some of these shows and everything. And, you know, he would have bought it. I probably would have sold it to him sometime probably in August, September of this year, and figured out a way to get it out to him back out in California. But this other guy came through.
So let me stop you there. And I don't want to interrupt that, but I feel like that had to be hard because you had already, you didn't shake the guy's hand or whatever you did, right? But you knew he was good. Did you ever think, hey, I'll take a deposit, it's yours, and we can write up the paperwork, but I get to parade this thing around for another, battle in Bama, and I get to do that. So I almost feel like the money's one thing, but you get to keep it and sell it. Like, I know, like, I think Dell's a guy where he builds these trucks for people, and then he ends up driving them around for a year because they don't take them or that whatever reason. So I almost was like, so that probably, I would assume, factored into your process of like, dude, I get to sell it and I get to, it's a win-win.
It definitely was. And he and I did agree to that. And we did a handshake deal on it where, he told me what he had going on, right? I mean, he was a business guy and what he was doing and building a commercial building and some other stuff. And he got where it was hard to get in touch with him. So I wasn't sure, did he change his mind or anything like that? And he didn't once I finally got in touch and stuff with him. But when I shook his hand, I told him, I was like, look, if anybody else comes around, I was like, I won't sell it out from underneath you. I was like, I mean, you're buying it until we will say otherwise and stuff like that. And so, and which is what I ended up doing. Once this other buyer came out and was really wanting it at once, the second buyer, his timing was really good because we just got done Lone Star Throwdown, because I wanted to make sure I did that show for Chris Pate and supporting him down there in Texas. I mean, that was important to him, and it was important to me to be there. So after hitting that show and then having this gentleman reach out to me and wanting to buy it, his timing was just really good, where it was, if he was going to pay that price, which he agreed to, the reason why, and because at one point I was actually going to say, let me show it at a few more shows, and then we'll send it out your way. But what I quickly realized, the price he was going to buy it for was way more than I had it insured for. So let's say if I was to, jump in the truck and trailer and haul it another 500, 800 miles, if something was to happen, I mean, yes, I've got insurance to kind of cover the cost of the rebuild, but I would have lost the difference of that versus what that sale price was. So, and that was too great of a difference for me to just say, okay, I'm going to go to this show over this weekend.
Well, and you got to go to Chris's backyard. So that, like you said, the timing is like, sure, I want to go to a few more shows and show off this whole thing, but you've already gotten some amazing hardware. You're not chasing hardware, so nobody's going to fault you. That just had to be some struggles for sure to work through that.
Yeah. It's been, I mean, it was a tough decision, like I said, and it's, when it's offered that type of dollar amount, it shouldn't have been a tough decision, but it still was. I mean, it really was. I mean, and like I said, I had some sleepless nights over a good problem, right? I mean, it's like, if I decided no, I still got this incredible truck. If I decided yes, I've got this financial kind of windfall that kind of fell in my laps on an unexpected time. And so it was kind of a win-win, but man, it was such a difficult decision because, like I said, I just got done putting 2 years of what I love doing, and now we've got a finished product out there, and the reception is incredible. And I'm about to sell it, and that was hard. That was a really hard decision, but in hindsight, looking at it, seeing, I mean, it's in a great collection. I mean, it's in a garage, warehouse, whatever you want to call it, surrounded by Ferraris, Bugattis, custom trucks, custom cars, Lincolns, you name it. Everything's in there. So I couldn't ask for it to be in a better spot. So same thing with Domino. Domino's in a huge collection here south of Nashville. I mean, I'm just blessed with both of those and kind of where they ended up. At any given time, I can go see them, and I love that.
So when it comes to money for the audience, I talked to Terry before we go live. I'm not going to hit him up on that information of the sale price, out of respect of not only Terry but also the buyer, right? But one thing I will say is, do you think, because I know the audience is wanting to know, and I don't blame you guys, but do you think, or did your SEMA price change at all? Did the price of, because I feel like at SEMA, you're like, dude, this is like my first date with this girl, and you're already trying to swoop, take my girl here. So does the price change, or do you set the not for sale price, and does that evolve throughout the year and the hardware and things like that, or does it kind of stay the same?
It did. By the time, probably from the start of SEMA, this is how quickly that changes. From the start of SEMA to the end of SEMA, my number did go up.
Okay.
And
you had to keep distancing yourself.
Right. Well, the reception was incredible. I mean, you were there all week long too. I mean, we had a crowd around Twisted all week, and just, I mean, every time when we did take it to shows after that, I mean, everybody came up and was like, man, this thing blew up the internet for the last 2 months. I mean, it's everywhere. And it was, I mean, that's how it was received. And I mean, my Instagram blew up. I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing on there. I'm just having fun with it, but it's kind of went crazy and everything. And that just shows me how many people just want to see what's going on with the build and seeing what's going on with the lifestyle that Sarah and I are doing as we're going out to all these different shows all across the country. And, we get to see all these incredible builds, and I'm sharing just as much on those, just so, because I love it. I mean, I love this whole atmosphere. I love everything about it. And, all these builders and stuff that I've made friends with, all the different owners I've made friends with, I want to promote them. I want to see them successful. Like, I didn't go to this last show down in Texas that Ricky was at, but I'm texting him the whole way through, man. And it's just like, I want him to win it all every time. And that's what I'm here for.
So the price evolves, beginning of SEMA to the after SEMA. And then did it continue Barrett-Jackson, or did it kind of, at that point, are you kind of like, hey, this is a pretty good not for sale price?
That to me, at that point, it was a pretty good not for sale price, so if I don't have the highest sold 2-wheel drive K5, then I'd be hard pressed to find one that sold for more. So, which still blows me away that that's even possible. So
when you think about your for sale price, not your not for sale price, even that is sometimes a hard thing, right? It's like people are so critical in the world that we live in. And I've always kind of said, well, this is what I think it's worth. And then you put it out there and you say, well, this is what I think it's worth. And then you're like, well, did I sell it too cheap? Did I not sell it for enough? I put this into it. How do you come up with a for sale price, not a not for sale price? Like when you're sitting there and you're driving around, and I don't even think you have time. So one thing to think about SEMA, and you learn the lessons with Domino, but it's like, I don't have time to remember how the hell I'm going to get to Vegas. I'm just trying to make my deadline. And you guys were way ahead of schedule. I felt like you were way ahead of schedule. So everything comes in, and then you're like, okay, now I need to, in my free time, I need to sit and look at my receipts and my life and figure out that I've got this much, money into this, and then kind of come up with a for sale price, and then tack on my additional, you know what I mean? So how do you work through that?
Well, that's what I did. I had, I knew the cost of where I was, and that's what I had, the insurance when I would insure it at different phases of the build. I think I first started doing insurance on it at a higher rate at about 65% of the way through the build. I went ahead and insured it for like $100,000. And then as we started doing more, I bumped it to, the 125. And then I kept bumping it up. So I had it insured to kind of rebuild it if I had to rebuild it. So I knew roughly what I had in there the whole time. if I was to sell it for that amount, that would have been a good sale. Like if I think of, if I didn't do all the SEMA, if I didn't get all the recognition, everything I did, and I've had it for 2, maybe 3 years, that would have been a great sale, you know, here in Tennessee, into if I was to sell it into collection at that price. With all the success and everything that we had when we came up with the other price, to me, it's a huge windfall. Like I mean, it was a phenomenal price for me to get, and it was a huge win for me. What I quickly realized out there, you know, when you start talking to these big collectors and these big time builders, you know, folks at Barrett-Jackson, what they're spending on builds now. When I was out there for the Barrett-Jackson Cup, the top 5, when the top 5 rolled across there, I don't think there was a single one of those that was under $1 million build. And there was, I think, one, if not 2 of them, that was probably a $2+ million build, and which is phenomenal. People are willing to put that type of money and that type of creativity in these builds. So when this buyer came about, the price that we came up with, I think for me having it built here in Tennessee, I got a great price. For him building one in California, you know, higher labor rates, higher everything on getting one built out there, I think he believes he got a great price. So it was a win-win for both of us. And so I tried to look at it from that perspective. I could have probably gotten a little bit higher price if I would have thrown a little bit of a higher price out there, being that he didn't negotiate at all. So I probably did throw it, but I was happy with it. I mean, once I came up with that not for sale price and said, this is what it would take for me to let it go and for me to not look back, then I settled on it. And that's what we sold it for.
I think another thing too, to add to that is, and this is what I think is kind of the Barrett-Jackson effect being right here in our backyard, is COVID changed some things when you think about the supply issues and the wait. People don't want to wait. So it's like, well, Terry put 2 years of his life into this. He had to commission and get into contract with MTI. He had to get Chris to paint it. And so when you think about that, they get the instantaneously. So whether it's labor rates from one state to another and everything else, it's like, no, I want it right now. I don't have to wait for it. And if I have the means, I don't have to wait for it. So that's a big part of it too, where you're going to spend 4 years of your life in a build process, or are you just going to go and take that amount of money and walk down to an auction or a Cars and Coffee and say, hey, I really like your truck. I want to buy it. Okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to wait.
And that's the same thing. That was the first buyer. I mean, he had 3 builds going. One of the ones, they want to go after the Slonaker Award at Grand National in 2024. I mean, so not even like, the past show in 23, this is for next year's show. So he's got 3 builds going and, some really high end builds. He wanted something now. And and same thing, if he's building something to go after the Slonaker Award, that's going to be a high dollar build. And same thing, I think the price to him to get it there immediately was a good price.
So what would you say when you look at this journey? I mean, it has kind of been a fairy tale, bookend journey, the twisted story. 2 years. I mean, I want to say, the first time I got a picture, maybe it was 3 years ago, about, you took this Jimmy in. But what would you say, what was the hardest part of the journey in the last 2 years?
It was probably, originally, we debuted at SEMA 22. We had originally talked about SEMA 21, and we started going down the path. And, Chris England, who, like I said, he's kind of newer on the scene, having his own shop and everything. And of course, I got him excited, right? He's thinking, all right, I'm going to have my first SEMA build and all this stuff. Well, then we had a hard time getting parts in supply chain, getting, like I said, the radiator took a while, the AC took a while, steering column took a while. And when you can't have those parts, you can't start talking about interior, you can't start talking about those stuff. So everything started getting delayed. And we made the decision probably in August of 21 that we're not going to do SEMA that year, and that we were going to take our time, because everybody hears about SEMA crunch, and it's real. Like you get in these timelines and stuff, and the last thing that you want to do is cut any corners. And I was not going to cut any corners. Like, I had a vision for this truck and I knew what I wanted it to be. And that's exactly what we decided. So the hardest part was when I had to make that phone call to Chris that we were not going to do SEMA in 21. And it wasn't because, I mean, not that he wasn't looking forward to sleepless nights and everything else to try to get this thing through, but I could tell, I mean, he had his heart set on it. This was a big deal. And I didn't want to let him down. And what I told him when we did that, I was like, all we're going to do is we're going to take another year and we're going to go bigger and badder. And we're going to make this thing, even a bigger splash. And after we, when I told him that, hey man, I got a guy wanting to buy it. And I told him for sure that I wanted us, that we were going to sell it. I wasn't sure how he was going to take it. I mean, there's a lot of things that I was hoping to do to show it around here locally and try to get him more business. Well, he's getting business nationally now, so I'm not worried about that. But I didn't know how he was going to take it, that, we put all this time and blood, sweat, and tears and emotions all into kind of building this. And all he did was thank me, like, after we sold it. Like, he was just like, he goes, you delivered on everything that you said you were going to be and or would do with it, and even more. And he was like, we're so thankful for you. And that's how I was feeling towards him. So to hear it coming from him, I mean, meant a lot. But I still remember when I told him that we were not going to make it in SEMA in 21, because I felt like I let him down.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to let that happen 2 years in a row. So.
Well, at the end of the day, if you asked him now to go back, you had that experience and you could see the forest from the trees. He's got his mind and body and soul into this, and it just took that back step. And whether he realizes it now or not, but you added years to his life, right? Because you gave him, now he may chew them up in more SEMA builds, but you gave him a lot more time and you guys could focus. And by doing that, the story is the story. Twisted is twisted. So would 21 twisted be as good as 22 twisted? That's a tongue twister right there. Right. So yeah, would 21 twisted have been as good as 22 twisted? We don't know. We don't care, but we know that 22 twisted was pretty amazing. And you delivered, not only with the product, with showcasing your builders and your painters and all of your different companies. And at the end of the day, it's been a journey, and it's cool this whole year you're going to just be going to shows thinking about it, but you've got success. It's got to feel great. And I just think for the audience to know, like, if you're going to be a SEMA builder, that's one thing. If you just want to be a showcase builder, but have a plan, have a vision, go after it, and work with those people. And just like Terry, you can do it. It's just you might have the same hair that we have after you're done. Right.
Absolutely. It can be stressful. But in hindsight, I mean, you're 1,000% right on that. Is like, I've got the opportunity now to kind of build this thing even bigger and better if that's the direction I choose, right? I mean, and everything that we did on this build with Twisted really did open up so many doors for me. And already, like, I mean, I get messages on Instagram or on Facebook and stuff now that people are starting to see that I've sold it. And, they ask me, like, what's next? Can we be involved? And that's incredible. Like, I went from calling and sending emails, and I mean, I made PDF files where I could just kind of show my vision and stuff on it using the renderings and all of this, and to really, like, chasing down anybody that would listen, to now I've got people reaching out to me, and that's big now, and I appreciate that. Like, I don't let that go by and not truly appreciate what that means. So the fact that I get all these messages, I got multiple messages today that, because of there's Ken and a few other guys on social media started sharing some videos from the quarantine cruise. And so it got really pumped up again today when it showed out there a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to continue just riding the wave. I mean, because it has been fun, and I'm going to make a plan, and once I start having that plan, I'll start making it known as well, because like I said, I'm going to stay involved in the scene. And if I had to make a recommendation to anybody that's kind of in this same boat, listen to kind of what this last build has been for me, and have that plans in place. Like, understand what plan B could be. Understand that you may have built something that is extremely special and that you never want to let go of, or you may have built something that people that have the means and the financial means to be able to buy it and not think twice, that those people are out there, and there's a lot of them out there, and that you've got to keep that option open. Not that it was my final goal and anything, but I'm sitting at a point right now where I've got unpaved roads in front of me, and I get to make them. I mean, that's a great feeling.
That might have been saying he's going to do a 4-wheel drive. I don't know. Just saying, because it's unpaved roads.
It could be, right?
Well, I think one thing to just kind of wrap it up was, you said that people are calling you now, and you're thankful, but people are calling Chris, people are calling all these other people. And it's really because of your, ability to bring it all together. So it's a recognition, as well as, like you said, a gratitude because of everything that you've done. And really, I love this story because not only do I love you and your family and what you represent, and that we've become friends over the years, but you're not that big guy, right? You're you. And we look at these huge shops, like for example, the Roadster shop, or you look at, all across the nation, there's different shops that are huge shops that are doing huge builds, and you made a wave as a small team, and you came, and it's kind of a little bit of a small win for the little guy, if you will.
Right.
And then that becomes the challenge is, well, how do I stay the little guy, if I want to continue to progress? And you obviously have the family and the faith and the real job and everything else you've got going on. So it's all about the balance. But hey, I was on top once, and it felt really good. And this is what we did. So you've earned that. So I think it's good. I want to say thank you for taking time to share the story with us. We'd love to kind of see what is next, because there will be, like you said, just like there would be when Domino. I remember when Domino was going to go overseas, and I'm like, oh my God, right? But it's the whole process that turn that page, and it's going to be good no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you, man. Thank you for reaching out. I thank you for being the friend that you've been over the last several years. And, every time we happen to be in the same city, I always like to grab a cold one with you and just talk about good times, man.
Yeah, good people. And we're lucky at this community that we live in. So, all right, Terry, we're going to take it out. Tell Sarah I said hi, and stay on the line. I got to get you some stuff, but we appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Taking it out, Twisted style. As always, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Please let Terry know, hey, I heard the podcast. I love it. I love the story. I love the adventure. I love the journey. I think as a guest, that's one of the funnest things, is when people reach out and say, hey, I really enjoyed your show. It's kind of an affirmation thing. So you can let me know. You obviously know you can rate and review us. Let us know how we're doing. But if you got time, send him a message, send him a DM. I'm sure he would appreciate it. All right. Have a great week. Stay out of trouble. Do what you do. Peace.